New data from October 2021 shows that inflation has climbed to 6.2% since last year, and that's the highest it's been since 1990, or 31 years ago. But you could probably already tell that. Prices are higher on just about everything, and it's probably impacting your budget. So today I'm going to be sharing how inflation has been impacting our budget and our financial goals going forward. Hey guys, I'm Marissa and welcome back to my channel. Here on my channel we talk about life and money and how you can enjoy life while still accomplishing financial goals through the use of a budget. So if that sounds like something interesting to you, scroll down, hit that subscribe button so you won't miss any new videos. Today I'm getting a little personal, sharing more about our personal budget and how things are changing because of this high inflation that we've been experiencing. We know that inflation has been up for a bit of this year, and we've definitely seen these changes in our everyday purchases like groceries, gas, and household products. So I feel like it's now time for us to update our budget accordingly, update some categories and our financial goals to make adjustments for this time of high inflation. Also, if you're interested to know why is inflation going on right now, Graham Stephan actually did a great video talking all about this and diving into more of the details, and so I will leave a link to his video in the description box down below. It's super helpful in understanding what's going on in a non-political way. So let's dive in and chat about how this has been impacting our budget. The first budgeting and financial goal decision that we are kind of updating right now is the amount that we're keeping in our emergency fund. When you have money in the bank in a time of inflation, the money in the bank is actually just losing its value because you're not earning money on that to keep up with inflation. If inflation is going up 6.2% year over year, that means that over a year of keeping your money in the bank, you're losing 6.2% on that money if it's just sitting in cash. So all that being said, in times of high inflation, it's typically not the best to keep so much cash on hand. So this is something that we want to evaluate as well. Also, I'm not a financial advisor. This is not financial advice, just sharing what we are doing for our budget specifically. We've always liked to keep our emergency fund between 3 to 6 months of necessary expenses. So I'll take a look at everything that we basically need to live off of for 1 month and then multiply that by however many months I want our emergency fund to be. So I've always pretty much erred on the side of being more conservative, and I've always done 6 months of expenses in an emergency fund because I love that extra security that comes with, having that emergency fund. But again, in a time of high inflation, that money is actually working against me because it's not keeping up with this extreme rate of inflation. But having an emergency fund is still important. So we have decided that we are going to reduce our emergency fund to have that be more at about 3 to 4 months of necessary expenses, and then just invest the rest because we still want to keep cash on hand. That's still important, but we just don't want to have that much cash on hand. The other thing to think about is that we have extra cash on hand that isn't just for the emergency fund. If you've watched my channel and my budgeting videos, then you know we also love to use sinking funds and save for upcoming expenses. So we have money set aside for specific upcoming things, whether that is like vacation, house maintenance, household things, car maintenance, like all these different categories. And so we already have cash on hand for that as well. So when you look at like the sinking fund total plus the emergency fund, that was a bit of cash. So for us personally, since we are in a pretty stable place with our finances, we don't have any consumer debt, my husband has a really stable job and everything, so we feel good about lowering our emergency fund to be about 3 months of expenses and investing the rest. We do keep our emergency fund in a high yield savings account, which earns us more interest than it would at a traditional bank, but high yield these days is at 0.5%. When I first opened this account a few years ago, it was at over 3%, which was really great, really high then, but now it's at 0.5. So it's still very low, but not as low as what it would be at a bank. So it earns us a little bit of something, but again, it only earns 5%, whereas inflation for the last year has been 6.2. So definitely not keeping up with inflation. So since we are lowering our emergency fund a bit, you may be wondering where that extra money is going. And that actually will be going to our Roth IRAs for 2022. We like to fund these at the beginning of the year. So I'm hopeful that in like January, February, we can have 2 Roth IRAs fully funded. And the other cool thing about a Roth IRA is that it can actually double as an extra emergency fund because you can take out your contributions to your Roth IRA tax and penalty free. Not anything on the growth, but just the contributions. Now, I would not ever want to pull money out of any sort of like long-term investment account that I have, like my Roth IRA, especially if you need this in a time when the market is down. But this is something that could be like that extra safety net. So that's why we also feel good about this, because we have this cash on hand in our emergency fund. And if there was something that we needed, you know, a lot more money or, you know, something like that, that was more than our 3-month emergency fund, then we do have access to be able to pull that money from our Roth IRA contribution. And this is something that obviously has more risk associated to it because it is investing and that has risks. So this is definitely something that we've thought about as well. But for us personally, in our situation where we feel like other things are really stable, we feel totally fine with keeping some cash on hand for our emergency fund and then investing the rest into our Roth IRAs so that we have money working with us, especially in this time of inflation. Which brings me to the second thing we are doing because of inflation, and that is continuing to invest. Like I said, we're planning to max out our Roth IRAs at the beginning of the year, and we are also continuously putting money into my husband's 401k through his employer. Our goal is to be saving at least 15% into long-term retirement investments between our Roth IRAs and our 401k. And we want to continue doing that into 2022. By the way, I will have a whole video coming out soon of our financial goals of 2022, so definitely stay tuned for that video coming up. But we want to continue to do that because over more than 90 years, equity investments have returns in excess of inflation. So this is definitely something that we want to do to be able to keep up or beat inflation by continuing to invest. Obviously, like I said, investing does assume risk, but there are months or even years where the market is down, and this is definitely something to consider, and there is risk associated with investing. But for us, we are still going to continue to invest because we want our money to keep up or exceed that rate of inflation. The third thing we are doing in this time of high inflation is not putting anything extra to our mortgage. There was a time that we were working on putting extra money to our mortgage because we had PMI, private mortgage insurance, on our loan, and we wanted to get out of that. And so we were putting extra money to our mortgage principal to be able to reach the level that we needed to be able to get out of PMI. And if you've been following along with my channel, then you know that we were able to get out of PMI in spring of 2021. And it's been great to not have to pay that extra $100 each month in PMI. We ended up putting about $5,000 extra towards the principal, but what really helped us out was all of the market appreciation that we've seen in the last year. But all that to be said, we haven't done an extra payment to our mortgage in a while, but we are definitely not planning to, especially in this time of high inflation. With inflation right now being at 6.2% and the interest rate on our loan being closer to 3%, we are actually making money by having debt at a lower interest rate than the price of inflation. So with our interest rate being so low and inflation being so high, we are not planning to put any money extra towards paying off our mortgage during this time. And instead, we want to put those extra dollars into things like investing. And the fourth way this time of high inflation is impacting our budget is increasing some budget categories. You've probably seen the prices of groceries, restaurants, gas, household items all go up in price. And if you are keeping a budget, then you've probably noticed this in your budget. I have been sitting down doing our budget and have been flabbergasted as to how much we've spent on some of these grocery items, and we haven't changed any of our shopping habits. And so I know that this is due to inflation that these prices are going up. We've always tried to keep our grocery budget at $450 over the last several months. Our family consists of me, my husband Jacob, and our 18-month-old son Peter. I've loved using this rule of thumb of spending about $150 per person per month on groceries. So for us, that's $450. But even $450 these days doesn't seem to be keeping up. So I think that this is a category we are going to have to increase due to inflation. We also plan to increase our gas budget a little bit because that's gone up as well. And also our eating out category because those prices are also going up, and even our household category. Recently, Jacob went on a Costco trip and just flat out remembered how much we used to pay for an item has now gone up in price. And so we definitely have seen those things at Costco and other grocery stores as well for prices of food and household items. So it's definitely time to increase these categories. The bummer with this is that we're obviously having to spend more money on just necessities, basic necessities for the month. And we use a zero-based budget, which means all of our income equals all of our money out, whether that is to expenses, debt, or savings. And if we have more money that we're spending on these necessities and on these necessary expenses, then that's less that we can put to our other financial goals. So that is also, I guess, a budget change that we are experiencing, is putting less towards financial goals and also honestly fun things probably in our budget, because we're having to budget more towards these necessities. So those are the ways that our budget and financial goals are kind of changing due to this time of inflation. Let me know in the comments below, what are some ways that you've noticed inflation going on? Have you had your grocery budget go up, or what does that look like for you? And how are you having to adjust your goals and budget? And don't forget to subscribe to my channel for more videos, and I'll look forward to seeing you in the next one. Bye.
About to leave.